Hey guys, welcome back to Macy Acres. I'm Chris, and in today's episode, we're going to be working on this 12-volt water pump for an RV. What we have here is a 12-volt water pump, and this came out of my RV. And if any of you are familiar with RVing or any of that nature, you know that they've got these little water pumps in them. Well, I usually take mine out every year, and that's why I put a little 2-wire plug in mine. Soldered that in, so all I have to do is unplug it or plug it in. Well, this year when I went to plug it in, I noticed that I wasn't building any pressure, it wasn't turning on, nothing was happening with the water pump. So I double checked to make sure I was getting 12 volt to the cable, and I was getting 12 volt. 12 volt was going to the machine. So 12 volt, if you follow the wires, goes up through here and up to your pressure switch. It's a micro switch in here, which is tripped by a little pressure bulb that pushes out onto the switch itself, and it tells it whether or not to turn off or turn on. And then that comes out of the bottom here and goes to the motor, and then it's grounded back through the circuitry right here. So I thought to myself, I need to figure out what's wrong with this before I just go and buy one, because it could be the motor, and if it's the motor, let's go buy one. But I'm going to show you how easy it is to test one of these, see whether or not it's the motor, if it's the pump assembly itself, or is it this little micro switch, which sometimes those go bad. All right, some of the tools you will need to test this pump. First of all, having a little multimeter here, that will come in handy because you're going to be using the DC side to make sure you get DC power. And you're also going to be checking for ohms. And the ohms is going to tell you whether or not your micro switch is working. A standard screwdriver would work. I just brought my drill over because it's going to make it quicker taking this apart. Of course, the pump. A few little jumper cables so you can actually hook up the ends of this to make sure it's actually working. Because what we're going to do is we're going to do a few tests here really quick. So after the pump, I have this 12-volt power supply. This came out of a desktop PC. All I did was pull that out. So I jumpered that so it will automatically turn on when I flip the switch down here. But first, let's test this motor. If you're looking at the bottom of your pump, you're going to see this hot wire coming in right here. It goes into this micro switch, which then comes out and into your motor, which on the other side of your motor right here, there's a little black wire down in there. It's very hard to see it. It comes out and it's this feeder wire. So what we're going to do is we're going to bypass this switch and we're going to just put power to the pump to see whether or not this pump even turns over. So we're going to apply the power next to this pump. All right, now that I've pulled the wire from the motor off of the micro switch, I have clipped on a little alligator clip there. We're going to run that straight over to this yellow wire on the PC power supply. Then I'm going to take this wire, which is the ground. We're going to just put that green on there, and we're going to see if we can't get it to ground over to here. All right. If I apply power to this power supply now, this motor should kick over. So let's set the motor upright and apply some power. Okay, so that tells me that the motor is good, and I could actually feel some air coming out the end of it. So that tells me that the impeller in there is free. So now it's time to get into this little micro switch and see whether or not the micro switch is what is failing. All right, in order to get into this micro switch, we're going to take the screws off the front part of this because there's a little pressure switch in the back. So let's go ahead and take this apart. Okay, so when we pull the switch off, make sure you store all your screws somewhere so you don't lose them. And I'm going to go ahead and pull the wire off of here, and we're going to do some testing. If you look at this, there's a little switch right here. Let's see if you guys can hear it. So that should trip and turn this off. So let's get this meter back out. If you look at this meter, we're going to put it to ohms. All right, we set the meter to ohms, and sometimes on the ohms setting, instead of it just saying 1 or it shows numbers across it, when you contact these two, some of them do make sound. Mine has little sound waves down there. So it'll make sound when it has continuity or it has a connection. So let's see what happens here when we tap these together. See how the meter jumps around? That tells me that we have a connection. And see how it clears out? So that tells me that we've got a good connection. Now, that's how you can test switches to see whether or not a switch works. So we're going to test first by putting a probe on this end, and we're going to put a probe up here on this end. See if I can hold all this and do it all at the same time. So we've got them right there, and let's try the switch. Well, that doesn't do anything, so let's move on to the next one. Kind of is a little sporadic. So let's tear this apart a little bit more. There's little holes right here on the side of this. Let's pop this back off. Okay, now that we've opened this up and you can see this little micro switch that's sitting in here, all you got to do is pull on this and it'll slide right out probably. Yep. So there's the micro switch. If you look at that up close, I don't know how well it'll zoom in there. Just a little micro switch, and this is the little button on the bottom. So let's test it outside of this little piece and see whether or not it's something broken in here, or is it this micro switch that's gone bad? So let's test this out. Here's the power coming out of the bottom side of this micro switch, and on the front side here, it says normally closed, normally open, right here on the front. Normally closed means that it is applying power if the button's down. If the button's up, it should shut off. Down here is the opposite. It's normally open. If the switch is in this position where it's normally open until it builds pressure, then it would turn on, which that's not the way you want it. So you want to test off this normally closed side. So the way our lead was set up on here is that it was on this lead right here and this lead right here. You guys watch the meter and you tell me whether or not you see it do anything. Well, that's not good. It should be making contact right now, and then when you push the button, it should disconnect and do what it's doing. So it's constantly saying that it's in the off state. This one down here means it's on and off, which is not what we want, because we want it to be off when the button gets switched. So that would be this one up here. And as you can tell, it's not doing anything. So this switch has actually gone bad. Let's see if I have a micro switch and we can replace it out. All right, from another project that I had, I bought a whole bunch of these micro switches. You can get them on Amazon. I think I got a whole package full of them here. A whole bunch of micro switches. You can pick them up for pretty cheap. I've got some that are normally open, normally closed prongs. I've got some that are just normally closed, normally open. So I'm just going to grab one that is set up for normally closed, and then when the switch trips, it shuts the pump off. So that actually cuts the connection, that engages the connection. So I don't need that extra prong on there. So we're going to test this new micro switch by checking its ohms. You should hear noise coming from it when I put the prong on. Now when I push the button, it shuts off. Back on and off. Perfect setup. Now we can test this over here on this pump real quick as well. With this pump not even hooked up yet, what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to just hook it up with this wire right here coming in like so. That's your power coming in. This down here is going to go to your motor right here. And what I'm going to do is plug this back into my power supply. Let's go ahead, and I'm going to go ahead and hold the button down, so that should keep it off. Now, the minute I release this button, it should turn on, which it just did. So this pressure switch actually will turn on and off. Does exactly what we need it to, so that may have been everything that was wrong with this pump. So the way that this works is how it builds pressure. Is there's a little bulb right here that as this builds pressure, that bulb is just this rubbery piece and it pushes out. And when it pushes out, it pushes against this little cap right here that shoves out. And when it shoves out, it pushes and it trips this little switch and shuts the pump off once it reaches its max PSI in your trailer. So let's go ahead and put this all back together. You guys just sit back and watch. Now that we've got the pressure switch back in place, you can hear it. That should work now. I'm going to hook the wires back together. And let's test this motor once again. I'm going to go ahead and push the button down to keep the motor from turning on. And when I release, it should turn itself on. So that works the way it should. Now all we have to do is screw this back onto the front of this pump. Take screw number 1, screw number 2, screw number 3, and screw number 4. Take our handy dandy drill, just snug it, and snug it in. All right. That is one fixed pump. So you guys are probably asking yourself, Chris, is it really worth buying a bunch of micro switches just to fix a water pump? Well, this water pump costs anywhere between $75 to $150. These cost between $5 to $10 for the entire pack from the Jungle website. That's a lot cheaper. Did you know that a lot of your appliances in your home use micro switches, like the doors on your refrigerator to trip the light inside and your microwave to trip the light inside? Even your water softener uses a micro switch. So these are very handy to have around and they're really easy to test. So as I showed you in this video, if you ever have a problem with any other appliance that has a micro switch, you can test it the exact same way I tested it for this. If you don't have the tools that I have, like a multimeter, you could pick any of those up at, like, say, a Harbor Freight or a Menards. Those are great places to go and pick up tools. You don't have to go with the most expensive, and don't be intimidated by a multimeter and all the little buttons and things it has on it. There's only a few of those settings that you'll use the most, and just familiarize yourself with it. Again, don't be intimidated by it. It's pretty easy to work on. So the reason I make a lot of these videos is because I want to empower you guys to be able to fix stuff on your own, because there's a lot of stuff that's out there that people just throw away or they replace and it costs them a lot of money. This way you can save yourself a few pennies by doing stuff on your own. For all of you that are out there watching our video and are not subscribed to the channel, hit that subscribe button and subscribe to our channel. We have all kinds of projects on here. We do DIY on gardening and electrical woodworking. We work on cars. We work on old garden tractors. We use the garden tractors. We may even mow the yard and just do videos of the yard being mowed. I don't know, people like that kind of stuff. I do know I have videos of plowing snow, blowing snow, snowblower repair, you name it. I'm into a little bit of everything. So click the subscribe button, watch our channel, because we really do appreciate it. And for all of you out there that have already subscribed and are just back to watch to see what crazy project I'm into next, thank you for watching. So anyway, until next time, guys, this is Macy Acres. I'm Chris, and I'm out.